The Mi-24 Super Hind. The history of the South African helicopters is very interesting. It is very much incredible that engineers under heavy pressure can still make helicopters that are absolutely insane. South African helicopters deserves a video of their own. However, today we will focus on the exclusive South African helicopter, the ATE Mi-24 Super Hind. The project kicked off in the 1990s, driven by the South African Advanced Technologies and Engineering Company, or ATE. They took the sturdy Mi-24 helicopters and embarked on a mission to significantly improve their capabilities. This included a series of major upgrades which made the helicopter more versatile. Due to having a good relationship with Algeria, this is probably where the South African Hind comes from. Outside of that, South Africa really didn't have access to Mi-24s. The ATE's approach was that they should retrofit the existing Mi-24 airframes with cutting-edge technology instead of making helicopters from scratch, which starts from Super Hind Mark II. This variant of the helicopter essentially replaces the old Soviet avionics with the modern Western ones. They were also made compatible enough so the parts could be produced by the ATE. The second variant, which is the Super Hind Mark III, essentially focuses more on the countermeasures and major upgrades in the weapons department, which also includes the installation of the South African ZT-3 Ingwe anti-tank missile, the 20mm GI-2 Chin turret, which is also used on the Rooivalk, and the Ataka ATGM. The Super Hind Mark IV pushes the upgrades to a whole new level, which includes the installation of a PAL Vortex engine particle separator system, better camera equipment, and of course the installation of the Mistral air-to-air missiles and ZT-6 Makopas. This helicopter entered service in 2001 in Algeria, with 34 Mark III variants and 10 Mark IVs being made. As for South Africa, they never used the Super Hind for its own military, as it's only meant for the export. And apparently the ATE Systems also has changed its name to Paramount Group. This was the general history of the South African Mi-24 Super Hind. Now let's get on with the armors and modules. Welcome to the Armor and Modular Protection Analysis, where we basically analyze the armors and modules inside of a vehicle. Today's vehicle is the Mi-24 Super Hind. Now the first thing we need to take a look at is the crew. This helicopter has the standard tandem seat cockpit configuration of an Mi-24. The pilot is on the back, while the gunner is located on the front. The crew has CCIP on all of its bombs, cannons, and rockets, including EEGS for the gun, night vision devices, thermals, IRIS-T auto tracker, an SPO-15 radar warning receiver, an IRCM, HIRSS, and finally 90 countermeasures. With a somewhat of a decent cockpit with multiple multifunctional displays, which I have to say it looks incredible. This helicopter has 4 self-sealing fuel tanks with neutral gas pressurization system with these fuel presets. The fuel presets on the Mi-24 are generally quite standard, and I have to say running out of fuel is not going to be your main concern. And the positive feature of this helicopter is that the fuel tanks are not really that big, and they don't fill up the entire vehicle, as this helicopter has an empty compartment at the center used for carrying troops. This helicopter uses 2 Klimov TV3-117V powerful engines that take quite a bit of time to spool up. And if you do any kind of rapid collective pitch change, that puts a lot of pressure on the helicopter's engines. You can see that the engine's RPM can go down to 70% as well, which is not good considering that this helicopter is relatively heavy and is not easy to maneuver. You must be careful to not over-rev the engines either. The maximum engine RPM limit is 130%. Anything above that is risky and can damage your engines. And once your engines are damaged, bringing down the helicopter using the auto rotation can be quite a bit of a challenge if you're not careful. At the end, you have the oil cooling system, transmission, traction of the control surfaces, and propeller shafts. Now let's get on with the armaments that this helicopter has. Let's start from the unguided rockets, with the S8KO, 4 installed on inner pylons, 20 on each pod, giving you 80 total. The S8KO rockets are really good. They have a very good penetration and explosive mass. Their range and maximum speed are quite standard. With the standard quantity of these rockets, the only problem that you can find with them is the platform that they're mounted. These rockets are hard to aim due to the Mi-24's platform overall not being that maneuverable, especially when the distance between the center CCIP is quite big. Being a rocketeer on an Mi-24 takes quite a bit of time. However, at the end, it is definitely worth it. Up next is the S-24 rocket, one installed on each pylon, giving you 4 total. If you actually put a precise fire on an enemy tank with this rocket, there's a high chance that you can one-shot almost any vehicle, as this high-explosive rocket has 25 kilograms of explosive mass. It may not have an effective penetration, a slower than usual speed, and a terrible quantity, but for a high-explosive rocket, 65 millimeters is more than enough. And if you want to go more into the Soviet-style engagements, you can also pick up the 250 kilograms, 500 pounds, and 500 kilogram bombs. And of course, the ZB-500 napalm bombs. Now let's have a look at the anti-tank guided missiles. With the first one being the ZT-3 Ingwe ATGMs, 4 installed on outer pylons, giving you 8 total. On the previous Mi-24 helicopters, the ATGM configurations were not really that great. You only had 2 missiles on 2 outer pylons, which limited you to 2 ATGMs. If you wanted to mount more, you had to sacrifice the 2 inner pylons for 2 extra missiles. Now this issue has been solved on this helicopter, and you can carry out not only 80 rockets, but also 8 missiles at the same time. But let's have a look at the Ingwe missiles. Statistically, they feel slightly worse than the DrMitsos, but once you look at it, you will realize that it is a very interesting missile. Not unique, but very interesting. They have a very good penetration, tandem charged warhead, standard speed, serviceable explosive mass, with a very good range. This missile is relatively good for engaging enemy ground units. It maneuvers and responds very nicely, and as a main armament, it can do well enough. The only issues that I personally found was the speed of the missile, not being enough like the Sturm, and the extremely limited firing window that this missile gets from this helicopter. And of course, maybe the explosive mass is not going to be that special. Outside of that, this missile works quite fine, and it can be a good companion to your rockets. And last but not least, you have the 20mm cannon. Now this is the part where it gets a little bit confusing. Inside of the files, this helicopter is named Super Hind Mark III. However, I'm not sure that the Super Hind Mark III actually had the new engine intake systems. So if the engine intakes are only exclusive to the Super Hind Mark IV, this means that this is a Mark IV helicopter, which should also get the ZT-6 Makopas, Mistral air-to-air missiles, and many more rockets such as the S-13s and S-5s. Unfortunately, this helicopter does not get any kind of air-to-air ordnance. However, it has a GI-2 20mm cannon that can penetrate around 50mm of armor, and has EEGS with decent turret angles, just in case if any kind of aircraft approach you from the front. Ground attack-wise, this helicopter can do the job. But can this thing actually maneuver as well? Well, we'll find out fairly soon. When it comes to the maneuverability of this helicopter, it is not an easy helicopter to maneuver with. The core design of this helicopter was meant to be a fast and armored assault helicopter that could penetrate the enemy lines, drop the troops, and engage the enemy ground forces. In Warthunder, this helicopter has an incredible mobility, as it is one of the fastest helicopters in the entire game. However, when it comes to the maneuverability, it is very much a flying BMP. Well, no pun intended, of course, as this was literally named the flying BMP in the Soviet service. So how can we turn better with this maneuverability? Well, I have a somewhat of a functional trick that can help you out on turning better with this helicopter. The first thing you do to stop really fast is to set your collective pitch to 0%. Once it's done, push the rudder pedal to the right side, and at the same time, press D to counter the loss of the altitude due to the collective pitch. You can also press S to pull up the helicopter faster. In the meantime, watch out for your RPM, as this maneuver can over-rev your engines and potentially destroy them completely. The higher the speed, the higher the chances are for this to actually happen. You can also not to use your D button all that much. Instead, manage your altitude and RPM by occasionally pressing D and slightly increasing the collective pitch. Please note that this maneuver is only applicable to the right side of the helicopter, due to the rotor blades turning clockwise. If you want to turn to the other side, you must slow down first and then set the collective pitch to 100%, which, judging by the fact that the Mi-24 is heavy, it can heavily affect your engine RPM. Outside of that, the pitch control is not great, the yaw control is serviceable, and the roll rate is a Soviet classic. Now let's get on with the game modes. When it comes to ground realistic battles, this helicopter is at a very decent position. Currently, the battle rating is decent for what it is, and you can customize the British lineups all you want. You do have CAS options, and you do have enough ground vehicles, and of course you have 2 SPAs as well. If we don't count, whatever this is. Other than not being able to counter aerial vehicles with missiles, the playstyles are quite flexible. Rocket rushing can be a decent option, and carrying ATGMs will be relatively effective with regards to destroying the enemy vehicles. You have an incredible camera sight, something that the Mi-24 helicopters lacked, and even after you ran out of ATGMs, you can pretty much dump your entire rockets or bombs and then return to base. Oh, and I almost forgot. You can literally use napalm bombs to make some of the most heaviest machines of war bounce like a teddy bear. Now let's have a look at the Heli PvE. In this game mode, your helicopter can be quite effective. Destroying the enemy bases is highly recommended, as I'm not really sure, but this helicopter may not have air-to-ground missiles while you're stuck. You do have the bombs and the weaponry to easily destroy an entire base without any kind of problems. You start from the rockets and then boost yourself up with the napalms, and the bombs can pretty much cover you up once you grind the rest. Destroying the enemy bombers and attackers is also there, but I'm not sure if it's even worth it, as you don't have any kind of anti-air capabilities except for your gun, which is limited with regards to its range. If they get close, of course, destroy them. Other than that, do not chase the butterflies. Once they're close, lock onto them with IRST and shoot them down. Destroying the enemy convoys is going to be easier than before. You have the ATGMs that have a very nice range, and you have enough rockets and bombs to destroy as many tanks as you want. And if you thought all of those weren't enough, your cannon can be a decent complement towards the tank's roofs. Destroying the enemy assaults and defenses is also a classic, as you can literally destroy as many tanks or anti-tank guns as you want. Again, the amount of rockets and missiles you get is just simply phenomenal. You have advantage over almost any mid-tier helicopters that are fighting the higher tier Heli PvE. Capturing the enemy helipad can help you practice your mobility and maneuverability and give you a sense of how helicopter performs if you want to stop it instantly. As I said, your top speed is incredible and you can use it to your advantage. In my opinion, this helicopter is a unique take on how a modernized Mi-24 can operate. It may not be a unique vehicle, especially for the platform that it is based on, but at the end it is a very interesting aircraft that can be used in different game modes. Before I wrap up this video, I would like to thank my friend Vlogger for designing this beautiful and incredible Mi-24. I just have to do some minor modifications so I could make it closely similar to the Super Hind. Feel free to check out its Instagram at planes_drawings_extravaganza. And special thanks to my friend Reaper for helping me out on modifying the blueprint of the Super Hind, way earlier than Live Server. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe, dislike it if you dislike it, and if you want to support my channel even further, you can also donate a super thanks or join my YouTube membership if you want to. For now, this is me, Bob Dickinson, and thank you for watching.